Content warning. Echo can be emotionally intense experience and may not be for everyone. Echo contains themes of adult nature, including violence, torture, drug usage, and harsh language. Viewer discretion is advised. Yet, even still, the mine managed to have one of the highest casualty rates for its workers in all Southwest. The suit argues that this was the root due to severe negligence by the owner, Gregory Biggs. Miners were required to buy their own tools, including candles, sledges, picks, stakes, and even dynamite. Their wages, however, were of such little amount that many of the miners must have been forced to choose between having the tools and their family being able to eat that week. Many choose the latter, as most men who moved to Echo did so with the explicit purpose of being able to provide for said family. Briggs operated the mine under constant fear of work unionization. To assuage this, he hired an incredibly national diverse assortment of workers. His rationale, thought, though denied in court, was to ensure that no group of workers spoke the same language, thus reducing the chance of collaboration, with a better working condition or wages. This preventative action was practically heinous due to the nature of its work itself. Communications was crucial, especially in the low light conditions of the lower depths. Despite the language barrier, miners were expected to coordinate dangerous group mining procedures. For example, the standard ore extraction, one miner would hold a spike to the mine wall, another miner would swing the sledge towards the spike. With light sources being scarce, that meant that the risk of striking the other miner with the sledge was a constant risk, and something like that occurred with some frequency. Many miners were crippled from blows to the paws or arms, and then once fired were unable to support their families. This led to several notable starvation incidents within town. The lawsuit documents also include references to the brief riot in 1950 where a grisly murder took place within the mine itself. I make sure to write summaries of all of this information down on a blank sheet of printer paper before putting everything back. It's this sort of crap that makes me glad I live in the age I do now. I don't think I'd make a very good miner. All right, that's it, I guess. All right, so we found something about the mines already. Wait, can we go back? Yeah, we found out about like the mines and how the work environment was not really good. The fact that they weren't given supplies, they had to pay for it with their own paychecks. There's a lot of starving happening within the town because of it, and a lot of people have been losing their limbs because of how dark it is in the mines. So now we go next to the abandoned school. Huh. After finding the parcel number on this GSI thing, I can't seem to find the corresponding file to it. It's like it doesn't exist in any records here, or it might just be misplaced. I'm gonna go with the second theory. Maybe I'll ask Flynn about it later. All right, let's go to Carl's mansion. I know enough about Carl's family to know that his house is seriously old. His great something or another in the town's founder, after all. The place has been seriously modernized into a more stucco adobe style, but there's some history underneath all that. Growing up, Carl overheard all this and started thinking the place was haunted. It freaked him out pretty badly. So much so, his parents basically begged me to have sleepovers with him during weekends, and even some weekdays. Not that I minded, of course. Carl had all the video game consoles that were out, and his parents bought him the M-rated ones too. I gotta stay up late with his giant TV blowing up aliens and running over hookers. I remember he started to become less afraid as time went on, and his parents stopped asking me to come over as much. So of course, shitbagging younger me told Carl a bunch of stories about ghost brides who I said I saw standing outside the house at midnight. And that's how I got to spend my whole 5th grade summer vacationing living in Carl's place. After looking at the parcel number, I retrieved the corresponding file and laid it out on the mail counter. This one had an archival notice attached to the front. That's pretty surprising on account that it's a residential lot. Opening the folder, a photo placed in front of all the documents immediately catches my attention. Teddy! Wow. A part of my mind immediately flashes back to Leo, but even he wasn't any close to being this defined. I guess life in the early 20th century will do that to you. I should probably read the caption note for this that was attached to it. Sheriff William Adler rests after surviving the partial collapse of the Hendricks Castle. The Hendricks Castle? Below the note are some rather old rudimentary building plans crumbling at the edges. The penmanship is all weird cursive and I can't read it. It does look like Carl's house, but much larger. What follows are a series of deed transfers from various members of the Hendrickson family and eventually more modern building plans. There's even a cutout from a magazine, Southwestern Modern, which shows off the kitchen space back when it was first redesigned. I know something wedged in the back of the beige piece of paper that doesn't look like anything else in here. Ooh. A poem? Why would this be here? Embrace of these lands, Boyek, as black takes the sky. Hot turns to cold, the safety of ignorance. From the specters of the day, shut their eyes, they wail. For the dark blanket, and to save them from hail. And the blonde tarantula pulls itself from the depths, wrought within and without, in search of a suitor who will not live past the vehemence of its love. I flip over the poem and set it down on the counter. On the other side is a notice of death for reference in a state transfer. It's for James Hendricks, who passed away in 1913. The cause of death is listed as poison/infection by tarantula. This is pretty unsettling. I didn't think tarantulas were poisonous. I mean, I know they aren't because I fear. Searched that information online one night after seeing one on my back porch at 3 a.m. I guess that poem was some sort of informal epitaph for this guy? Regardless, it's a shitty way to die. I slide the poem/death notice back into the folder and make note of it for the project. I think that's all for this parcel, so I place the folder back in its slot in the south wall. City Hall. City Hall has a lot of history. I assume most of the really old stuff isn't on file, but I'd be curious to see what's there regardless. After looking up the parcel number, I retrieve the corresponding file and lay it out on the mail counter. This one has an archival notice attached to the front. That's good. Hopefully that means there's supplemental information in here. Oh, I forgot to save. I keep constantly forgetting to save, and I only saved at that point. Unfortunately, upon opening the file, I see that there aren't many documents. There is, however, a marked photo of some sort wedged between the folder's edges. Whoa. Is that really the date of origin on the top right? The photo of these guys were taken at City Hall 100 years ago. I look back down the folder, finding a caption note of the image. Sheriff William Adler left, and Wensdale researcher Cliff Tibbetts writes, at town meeting to discuss Echo/Mesta tribe relations. Adler. I just realized now that's Janice's last name. Must be a distant relative of hers. The rest of the document in the folder just seems to consist of proposed additions and use changes for the building. A lot of them didn't pan out. There is a government roster there, though, and it lists the historical election results for the town going back to the early 20th century. Surprisingly, Flynn and his aunt are the only Moore I see on this list. It looks like Moore's family has been involved in public office in some capacity as far back as 1914. Which is doubly surprising, noting the prejudice against reptilians that was pretty heavy back then. There's this whole negative stereotype about them being evil and controlling the government that persists even to this day. So it's pretty weird a family like the Moores managed to keep getting elected back when the ignorance level was much higher. I'll make note of that to ask Flynn about it, and sensitively as possible. I'll go ahead and put everything back in the folder before returning it to the shelf. So what's next? As I turn around, I see the mayor standing in the doorway. She's peering me at quizzically. A little startled, I straighten up. Oh, hi, Mayor. I was just finishing up. She's watching me speak, like staring at my mouth, not my eyes. It's honestly freaking me out a little. She doesn't respond. Mare? Make sure you put everything back where you found it. Oh, yeah, don't worry, I did that already. Did you now? She steps in the room and picks up a folder from the edge of the counter I recognize as one of the abandoned mines. Oh, yeah, I forgot that one, sorry. She stands there with the folder held out, waiting for me. I quickly move and take the folder and try to ignore the hard stare I feel on the back as I walk to the archive wall. Far left end, second cubby from the top. Oh, thank you, I didn't... Uh-huh. It looks like Flynn's about ready to take off. You gonna give him some company? The way she phrases that makes me reconsider a hasty response. Sure, I can hang out with him and his roommate. You have a boy in your car? I blink. I have a Carl in my car, yes. He wanted to hang out back while I did all the work. I feign a chuckle, though not very well. I've never been good at this whole thing, smiling with your eyes. Carl Hendricks? Yes. Have a good rest of your evening, Chase. Thank you, Mare. You too. She moves on down the hall. After a moment, I follow suit to meet up with Flynn at the front desk. Dude, that's skeevy. After that, she just walked back to her office and shut the door, like almost slamming it. Maybe she's not a fan of you queer types. Carl puts... I like how I gave him... Oh, okay, no, he's fine. Queer. That. Like, it's like there. But like, I had to find an easier way to do gravelly. I step out of the car and pop the trunk, moving to gather my equipment. The sun is starting to set pretty low at this point. There's not really any tall mountains to the east, so Echo's sunset tends to last a while. Maybe, but she seems alright with Flynn. Carl follows suit, though his eyes are glued to his phone. I can't get over the whole, there's a boy in your car bit. Yeah, she seemed kind of, I don't know, weirded out with me or something. But she wasn't like that when we met. She was pretty cordial then. As I shut the trunk, I spy Flynn's truck parked behind the house, as well as what looks like a faded yellow moped. I'm assuming that one is his roommate's. Huh? The Ram shrugs. You are kind of weird. Maybe you did that staring thing you do sometimes. I blink. The what? Never mind, man. I frown. Carl looks up from his phone long enough to catch my expression. I'm just kidding. Just making fun of Flynn's whole dressing you down back at the river. Carl smirks. His eyes are no longer glazed over and it actually feels like he's looking at me rather than 1,000 miles away. We make our way up to the front door, Carl tapping his way to the screen. I'd imagine my house was even bigger back in the day, though my parents already have more rooms than they know what to do with. Like, we've got 3 spare bedrooms, right? But we never have any guests or anything, so they just don't get used and gather dust and stuff. Do your parents make you clean them? Rolls his shoulders, idly wiping his hooves upon the rough palm fiber floor welcome mat. Sometimes. Carl knows. Knowing Carl, that means pretty much never. Once inside, the familiar hot, stuffy climate hits like a wool blanket thrown around me. What sounds like more of a lo-fi hip-hop is playing in the background from what I assume is Daxton's room. The interior is dimly lit with the exception of a bright white light coming from the ajar fridge. Daxton stands... Like, look at it, he's so adorable looking. Daxton stands next to it, holding a block of pale cheese. Is this what you need? The salamander seems to be peering at us expectantly. No? He raises a brow ridge, craning his neck to look past us. Talking to Flynn. The Gilla's Lard steps out of the laundry room beside us, looking at Daxton. Oh, sorry. Carl giving me a sidelong smirk. That's provolone. The recipe needs Havarti. Flynn steps past us without much acknowledgement, moving to the kitchen beside Daxton. We have a block of Havarti, but it's in the freezer. There's a thing called defrost setting on the microwave. Yeah, but you left the fish you caught all on top of it. The pack is sealed, so it shouldn't matter. The whole freezer kind of reeks. Like I said, the package is sealed. That shouldn't matter. With a shrug, Carl and I move to set my equipment down the kitchen island. I take a seat on one of the wicker-topped bar stools. Carl lingers in the entryway a bit before moving to sit on the stool next to mine. Flynn wordlessly goes to the fridge and grabs 2 bottles of light beer, popping the tops and setting them down in front of us. Thanks. I'm not 21. Not 21 yet legally, you know. Flynn shrugs uncaringly before getting a beer for himself. Looking around, the countertops are pretty free of clutter beyond the Mesa Community College letters and a heavily used black notebook. The notebook is labeled World Building and Fictional History 204. A few water stains have shriveled the edges of the pages. Daxton places the provolone back in the fridge and places the allegedly fishy Havarti on a plastic cutting board. Meanwhile, Flynn is now at the sink washing vegetables. Daxton grabs a small knife and finally glances back at me. Welcome back, Chase. I wave a bit limp-wristedly. Hey. He smiles, then shifts his gaze to Carl. The Ram looks up from his phone a little apprehensively. And hey, I've seen you before, but I forgot your name. Samson something? Carl. He answers. Oh, Carl. He answers, his voice quiet. Oh. Well, good to meet you. You're kind of in and out of here real quick, like when you do come by. Carl shrugs. Yeah, same. The Ram's gaze flicks back to his phone, Carl typing something. Daxton frowns slightly before shifting his focus back to the cheese cutting. Looking over it, it looks like he's texting, the contents of said message being fake, so... Hey, Carl. Flynn looks over his shoulder, scrubbing on what looks like a cucumber. Got your outfit picked for the interview on Saturday? Yep. Wait, what? Carl, you have a job interview? Yep. I find myself smiling a bit. Carl didn't tell me about this at all. I'm surprised he didn't mention it earlier. That's great. Where at? Carl stops typing, his lips pulling a bit tighter around the edges of his muzzle. It's in Peyton Print and Design. I'll be like printing copies and making posters. Oh, the print shop by the mall. I know of it. What do they pay? Minimum wage. Not that it matters, though. Daxton looks slightly confused. I turn to him. Carl's parents are pretty well off. Flynn stops what he's doing, going to the fridge and taking out a box of strawberry popsicles. He drops it down on the counter beside Daxton, then the salamanders, startling some, looking to Flynn, then the box. Flynn points to the Hen's ice cream label above a logo of the weather vane with a chicken on it. Carl's parents' company. Daxton let out an astonished huff, looking for some sign to fib on Flynn's muzzle. No way. Way, I'm the ice cream boy. Daxton blinks, seeming to look at Carl in a new light. That's really cool. Carl looks off to the side, then back at Daxton. Glad you think so, I guess. Flynn takes a popsicle back to the freezer, returning to return to his station in the sink. Just make sure that the clothes you got are fucking fit right. Can't remember the last time I saw you dressed up. It fits, dude. My parents dragged me to all sorts of black tie event stuff when I have to stand around and lie about my career goals. You haven't done that in ages. I went to the charity gala like 2 years ago. You mean 20 pounds ago? Most of it is muscle. I'm not calling you fat, lardass. I'm saying that when it comes time for the interview and you come in with a hoodie and cargo pants, they're gonna think you don't give a fuck. I mean, I kinda don't, you know? Oh, the fuck you don't? You really looking forward to disappointing the shit out of your folks again? They're used to it. Jesus fucking Christ. Daxton and I exchange awkward glances. I'm half tempted to follow Carl's lead and start pretending texting. You work at the freight warehouse for years and were miserable. Can't blame me for not looking forward to the same sort of thing. Carl feigns a raspy chuckle. Though by the jittering of his hooves against the bar stool, it's apparent he's tense. And now I have my own house. I see his slitted gaze shift briefly on Daxton, who looks like he's concentrating very hard on cheese cutting. Mostly. And print and design, that's basically working with all the same computer shit you do for your art crap. Seems to note on the opportunity to diffuse. Daxton chimes in. You're an artist, Carl. Shit. By, like, the loosest definitions of the term, I guess. Flynn just rubs his temples some, shifting his attention back to cooking. He places the freshly washed vegetables into the metal pot on the stove with one of the steamer lids thing on top. What kind of art? You don't seem to like the oil-based pastoral type. Carl blinks. I hear Flynn grunt discursively, the clicking of the stovetop audibly as he turns the nozzle for the gas. His heavy tail flakes back behind him, lightly slapping the floor. I realize he's trying to get my attention, his eyes meeting mine, then moving to Daxton, and friendly flicking to a textbook by the dishwasher. Art History 101, Historical Perspective and Fundamentals. Glancing back, I think I see the corner of Flynn's mouth twitch up at me before he turns back around with a pot of veggies. It's still kind of weird seeing Flynn in a work outfit all the time. In high school, he was more of a jeans and jacket kind of guy. A Southwestern rockabilly who didn't like rock and roll. His work slacks are pretty baggy and definitely hide the definition of his legs. Flynn's got a V-shaped physique, though through and through, narrow calves but thicker thighs, and a sizable rump. When he bends forward a little, I can see the outline of it all. The lewd side of my mind is starting to wonder if he's doing it on purpose, but why would he? After what he said this morning? Pastorals? I'm not very good at backgrounds or anything. Portraiture, then. Very snazzy stuff, that. The salamander smiles at Carl, showing his rounded cheeks. Carl just looks at him confused. I decide now's a good time to interject and spare Carl and Daxton's entry-level college art class inquiries. Carl draws pop culture characters, stuff mainly, I think. I haven't really checked out his portfolio profile in a while. Superheroes, comics, that sort of thing. It's really good stuff. It's not... He pauses, shifting his phone in his paws akin to rolling putty. Since superhero movies become really popular, everyone draws that stuff now. Most better than me. It's kind of like a dead-end style, I guess. Can't make any money from anything I make. Carl sounds more like he's quoting something rather than stating an actual opinion. Daxton raised a brow, nodding in acknowledgement. That's probably something his parents told him. There's a pause, the only sound of bubbling, boiling water, and Daxton's knife hitting the plastic cutting board. Well, not if you draw them with their clothes off. The salamander tries to put the most innocent face. The lasts for about 3 seconds before breaking into a wary smile at Carl's groaning, the ram taking a long swig from his beer. He's grinning too now, though. Everyone online tells me that. I don't know, man. Every time I try to draw Chaos Wolverina's tits, they just look like big ass furry eyes stuck on her chest. Daxton laughs, and I find myself chittering a bit too. You could try drawing guys instead of women if women are giving you too much trouble. You'd like that, wouldn't you, Chase? I don't like superhero stuff that much. Well, I don't judge if you did, Carl. I've written a few awkward sex scenes in my day. You're a writer? That I am. At least I'm trying to be. I'm taking creative writing courses at Mesa to get better. The folks really wanted me to go into marketing like them, but I'm not really into that. That's lucky. I'm having to go into debt, so I'm not sure if I'm that lucky. Hopefully one of the books I'm working on sells well. Most people don't read these days. The salamander places the cut cheese upon a slice of rye bread and puts the bread on a cooking tray, sighing as he looks at Flynn. Not everyone can suffice off of coming home from work and staring at the wall for hours like you do, Flynn. Some people like some degree of mental input. Yeah? What? Flynn flicks the stovetop off, his eyes lulled and his brow ridge furrowed. Daxton passes him with the tray of rye and Havarti, sliding it in the oven. You call that shit you write mental input? The Gila stops what he's doing, squinting at Daxton. Did you defrost the Havarti, or did you just seriously just spend the past 15 minutes cutting a frozen block of cheese? This side of the house is like an oven with the habitat running like it is. The cheese warmed up on its own after a while in the room temperature. Flynn throws up his hand, visibly exasperated. It wouldn't have taken you 50 minutes to cut a few slices of cheese if you defrosted it. Are you in a rush or something? What do you mean about him staring at a wall for hours? Salamander looks standoffish now, his arm crossed. My question seemed to have been ignored. Might be. Daxton, what sort of stuff do you write? Surprisingly, Carl's the one to butt in this time. Daxton turns, getting out some plates. Mainly science fiction and fantasy. You know, Ad Astra, right? The Ad Astra has been brought in. Carl takes another drink of beer, rubbing his beard in thought. Sort of. I don't really watch it myself. It's that space exploration ship show from the 60s with the sexy aliens. Daxon snapped his finger. Yes, that one. People draw a lot of porn of them. I'm aware. Anyway, I used to watch it a lot with my little brother growing up. I got into the whole peace in the cosmos thought through science things, something fierce. The stories for each episode were based on real science. And Salamander finishes setting up the plates, bumping his fists together, and smiling a bit sheepishly. I'm taking a few physics and engineering courses at Mesa to try and better understand it all for my writing, my own writing. Makes sense. I also really like the whole diplomacy part. The ultimate goal of all our first contracts was peace and learning. You don't really see that much anymore. Yep. Like, this one episode from season 6 of The Frontier is a really good example of that, and it really inspires a lot about what I'm writing in my story. My phone vibrates in my pocket. A message from Leo. Hey, you're not at the motel. A sort of sinking feeling takes a hold of my chest. I can feel Flynn looking at me from over the counter as I type in a reply. With Carl, Daxon, and Flynn, about to eat dinner. When I look up again, Daxon's still chatting away to Carl about Adastra's episode, but I'm not really paying attention anymore. He's serving up steamed vegetables and the fancy cheese bread fresh from the oven. The bread looks a little burnt around the edges, but maybe it's supposed to be that way. Of course you are. My fingers reflectively squeeze tighter on my phone. Flynn quietly walks around the counter, stepping behind me to look over my shoulder. First, I think he's going to say something, but he doesn't. He's silent. With a sharp exhale, I begin typing my reply. We can all hang out tomorrow. Found something interesting stuff for my project at City Hall. Flynn makes a noise, though I can't really tell whether it's of encouragement or disapproval. Need to talk to you one-on-one, I reply. What about? Leo responds almost instantly. You know exactly what. At this point, I realize Carl's looking over my shoulders as well. I call him and Flynn both out for being rude. I'd call him and Flynn both out for being rude were this any other time. Daxon, meanwhile, just looks at all of us with a concerned expression on his face. What's up? Don't worry about it. Carl and Flynn both look expectantly as many thumbs hover over the reply button. Should I even respond at this point? I have no clue how he could have found out about Flynn and I, if that truly is what he means. Leo's never really been good at getting to his point across through text. He failed many English classes growing up. He always preferred to talk face to face, so maybe if I can be convincing enough in person, he won't be so worried. Or maybe I should just tell the fucking truth. I hate this. I'm not even sure I did anything really wrong, but I can't help but feel like garbage. And now my pseudo-infidelity lying game is becoming a spectacle. I decided I might as well respond with at least a somewhat true response now. No. I shove my phone back in my pocket and Flynn steps back. This is so fucking stupid. Carl just looks at Flynn with a flat expression. What? Carl shrugs. Like I said to Chase earlier, man, I won't say anything. Daxon quietly chews on the very crunchy cheese bread, looking at us from the other side of the counter. Drama? Yep. He moves from my side back over to the kitchen island, grabbing his plate of food and taking a big mouthful of broccoli. You all want to watch some Adastra? The salamander smiles awkwardly, gesturing to the small living room area. I'm down. Carl holds up a bottle of beer before taking a swig. Chase, Flynn? I sigh. Usually TV's a bit too passive for me when I'm trying to get my mind off stuff. Most often I turn to video games instead. Still, Daxon seems pretty passionate about this. I guess it can't hurt. Sure. Though all I've ever seen of it are a few of the movies, I think. Oh, which ones? The ones with all the lens flare and chrome. Daxon looks as if a bad taste settled on his palate.